I am the board president of the choir school at St. Peter's, as Jeff mentioned. This is my second year in that role and my 8th year as a choir school parent. So I've been a part of this organization for a long time. In my professional life, I'm the upper school academic dean at Charlotte Latin School. And so in that role, I have been in education a long time. And part of what I value so much about the choir school is the educational emphasis and what it provides to young people in terms of music and arts education. So I'm pleased that you're here to learn more about that and to meet Davis Tapp. I also want to introduce you first to Steve Bentley. And Steve is so accomplished in the nonprofit world. He did spend decades in for-profit banking business and moved into the nonprofit world. He's been with Time Out Youth here in Charlotte, with the Levine Museum of the New South, and he's currently working as a consultant for nonprofits, just like the choir school at St. Peter's. So he has been a friend of the choir school for a long time. He has been kind enough to work with us on several major projects, and so he was one of the people we knew we needed to ask when we were searching for our first permanent executive director for this organization. So we asked him to serve as part of a search committee, along with Tina McIntyre, who is a former board president and experienced also in education and educational management. So we asked Steve to serve with Tina and with some of us on the board to find the right person for the choir school. And we have done that, and we're here to introduce him to you tonight. Davis Tapp. And you will hear about him all through this evening. We're going to start with just some questions back and forth between me and Steve and Davis to acquaint you with all of them. So let me start by getting Steve into this conversation. Steve, you've been working in this world for a long time and with a lot of different organizations. So your perspective on this one is invaluable. What would you say that a modern organization, a nonprofit organization, needs in its leadership?
Thanks, Abigail. Well, first of all, and this will come as no surprise, I think, to most folks, is adaptability and nimbleness. There are so many challenges for nonprofits, and the landscape can change very quickly. Obviously, the most extreme example is what we've experienced over the last 6 months with COVID. And executive directors and other leaders in nonprofits have to be able to pivot quickly and respond to economic changes, competition changes, and so forth. Secondly, I would say passion for the mission. You really can't sell something that you don't love and don't believe in. Being tech savvy, we've never been more dependent on technology than we are at this very moment. And also keeping in mind that our choristers have never lived in a non-technical world. And so their expectations, along with the expectations of the community, are that we are able to utilize technology whenever possible. And then lastly, I would say a strong communicator. Telling the nonprofit story is central to success at all levels, whether that's with donors, the community, supporters, choristers, everybody around us.
Thank you. You're right. And I think that we were looking for all of those things when we began to look for Davis. Now, this organization has been around for 27 years and more now, and we're looking forward to a bright and long future ahead. But Davis is our first permanent executive director. So this organization began with a couple of founders who were long-term members of the organization, very important. We've moved to a model where we have grown and we're ready for an executive director. We had for a period of time an interim executive director to help us prepare for that moment. And so we came to this search pretty well informed, I would say, and we benefited from your expertise in helping us get to the point of hiring Davis. I wonder because I know sort of what our thought process was going into it, but what would you say, as you heard it from us, what was the choir school looking for in particular as we began this search?
Well, I'd say first and foremost was experience with advancement, and that is fundraising, fund development, recognizing that all programming, staffing, operations are all money dependent. And the choir school at one time had some development staff. And I think as the board was putting together the profile for the executive director, they saw that as probably the key component. It was at the top of the list. Secondly was communications. I referenced that earlier and how important that is to all nonprofits, both written and verbal communication. And then lastly, operational and administrative expertise. One of the things we know about what makes for sustainable nonprofits is having really strong operational processes that are documented and are replicable. And so we were looking for an individual that brought primarily those three components from a sort of skill set, as well as a number of softer skills, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. And Davis will have an opportunity to demonstrate some of those.
Absolutely. I think you've put your finger on it.
Would you add anything that maybe I missed?
Well, I think if you've been around the choir school and if you've been a part of a smaller, growing arts organization, we were looking for all of those things and someone who was willing to jump in and do all the things that need to be done. We were looking for a dynamic leader. And I do think that we found all of those things in Davis. What stood out to you in particular about Davis as we went through the process?
Wow, there's so many things. I would say at the very outset, we were struck by his enthusiasm and energy. It came across even on a Zoom call, which of course all of our interviews were conducted via Zoom. So that was like in the very first 3 seconds of our conversation. He brought excellent fundraising experience, both with small donors and large donors. And that's something that, we are hopeful about for the future. Really strong interpersonal skills. His references over and over talked about how skilled he is at building relationships, not just surface relationships, but really deep and lasting relationships with donors and volunteers and parents and youth. And so then his experience in recruiting youth and parents and volunteers was something that stood out. And then, we're in an interview process, you're always looking for the person that can articulate back to us sort of what it is about the organization that's important to them. And Davis was really did a great job of demonstrating his understanding and articulation of the choir school's contribution, not just to the choristers, but to the community at large. He has a huge passion for arts education, which came across. In fact, he said at one point in one of the interviews that arts education changed his life. That's what we're looking for. And then lastly, I would say he demonstrated a recognition of the importance of planning, not just around development, but planning for the organization to move it forward. So those were the things that stuck out to me right away, and I'm sure that you had some things that stuck out to you, Abigail.
Yeah, all of those things and more. As I have worked with Davis through his first period of time at the organization, I've been struck by them again and again. All those things that you mentioned, Davis is absolutely dynamic. He fills the room. He's the kind of person you talk to for 5 minutes and know that you'd like to go to lunch with and continue that conversation. And honestly, that's what an organization like this needs in an executive director, somebody who connects with people. And we have certainly found that in Davis. I want to get him in on this conversation now and let him contribute. So Davis, would you tell us something about yourself?
Well, first I'll say y'all made me sound a lot more impressive than I actually am. So I thank you for that. Yeah, my name's Davis Tapp. They said a lot about sort of my background, but a little bit about myself. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and I originally came to Charlotte in 2010 to go to theater school at Queen's University of Charlotte, right down the road from here. and graduated. And then I moved to the great metropolis of Lumberton, North Carolina, in Eastern North Carolina, if you've ever been there. It's a very small town, and I worked for the Boy Scouts there for 4 years. I grew up in scouting, and it's an organization that's really important to me. And that's where I sort of started my career, and I thought I wanted to go run summer camps, but I quickly discovered I really enjoyed working in the community and fundraising. Those are sort of the two things that I decided I really connected with and had an ability and also just a passion for. And I saw the need for, professionals in those fields and thought I could fill a void. So I was there until 2018, where I had the opportunity to come back to Charlotte and work for the Pi Kappa Phi Foundation, which is headquartered here in Charlotte, but I was their national fundraiser. So I was traveling all over the place all the time. And actually at the beginning of quarantine, I saw the choir school posted a job for an executive director. And I wasn't sure if I was qualified or if I was the guy, but I read over the description, and it hit a lot of the things that I was really interested in: community building, fundraising, recruitment. And also my entire career has been based around youth development and leadership. And so the fact that the choir school is doing that through the lens of arts education, I thought was really, really exciting. And so I sent my application in, and I think all the things that Steve and Abigail were talking about during the interview process, while they were coming to realize that this was going to be a good fit from their end, I came to realize it was going to be a fantastic fit from my end too. It's I've only been here 2 months, but the people are absolutely incredible. Our parents and our children and our board members and our donors, the passion they have for what this place does for young people is just inspiring. And like Steve said, arts education changed my life completely. It helped me mature. It helped me to learn life lessons. There's this joke about, what are you doing with a theater degree? Well, I use my theater degree every single day of my life. I really do. It completely changed the way I saw all types of work in my life and how to approach it. It helped me to overcome obstacles. It helped me to deal with internal stuff that I wasn't even really aware was going on. And I think our music program does that for our children here. It teaches them discipline and gives them a positive outlet for their feelings. And I just think that's really important for children. So yeah, that's me. And I'm over the moon to be here and to be a small part of all this and usher us into a new era of the choir school. And I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to get to work with all of you.
So Davis, what's next? What are you thinking you want to accomplish at the choir school?
Oh, what's next? So I think one of the things that really attracted me to the choir school was the fact that we're still a very small nonprofit, and there's a lot of room for growth and new thinking. And I think the board was looking for that when they brought me on board. And so I'm really excited to get out in the community and tell our story and tell people about what we're doing here. I think that's going to be my top priority over the next several years, is how can we connect more people to this program that's so special? How can we take it past our doors and into places we've never been before? And I think that's we talked a little bit about the COVID situation earlier. I think that's actually one thing that's really exciting about right now. In the past, really, we could only touch about 2,000 people a year with our performances between tours and who we could fit into St. Peter's for concerts. We did a virtual choir project earlier this year, actually before I came on board, and that's been viewed over 15,000 times. So what this is doing for us is really taking us into this new era where we're reaching more people in new ways that we've never done before. And I want to be a small part of that, not just with donors, but also with our wider community. So we have even more children coming to get a high quality music education here at the choir school. So that's my goal over the next several years.
And you've worked with us, and you and I have had several conversations on these topics, but can you put any more language around your vision for the organization, not just in the COVID period, but longer term? Not just what do you hope to accomplish, but what is this organization? What does it do for children? What's the most important thing about it? And I'll invite Steve to chime in as well, because I know you talked to him about these matters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are the premier music education in Charlotte, full stop. Elizabeth Lindsay and her artistic staff have just created this program, which is built on what Ben Newton started 27 years ago. That's truly second to none. I mean, other choirs, you're going to go and get great vocal coaching. But what we do is rooted in classical music education and theory. I think that's the big difference. And I want to make sure that that is what we continue to do. And we just continue to grow and share that message for as long as we can and bring even more choristers and families in touch with our school. I think the core of who we are doesn't need to change. It shouldn't change. It's what's made the choir school so special over the past 27 years. I think how we tell that message and how we get out into the community and invite more people to interact with us, that is what's going to have to change from a visionary perspective. But in terms of who we are, I don't want to mess with it too much. I think it's already a really special place. And I just want to help make sure it has the resources and the coverage that it really should.
I guess Davis, the comment that you made that the choir school is the premier music education program in our community. I would offer that if you were to ask the average person on the street or in the grocery store or at the mall or wherever, any other place we can't go right now, what that premier organization was, I'm not sure that they would name the choir school at St. Peter's. And so I think that your point about how important it is to tell that story is really, a critical thing as we look to the next, 3 to 5 years.
We think often, I think because we were at St. Peter's, that we've been in a bit of a bubble at times that we all know, right? We all know about this great organization that means so much to us, but we've got to break out of that, not losing people from that group that already knows about us, but how do we add and bring more voices and more contributions in the door? Because I think that there are people in the city, to your point, who don't know about us, that as soon as they heard and saw what we do, would want to be involved at every level. And so I think that's the gap we're talking about spanning here.
Even just in this period of time, it's been interesting to watch this organization not rethink its role, but just make clear that when you see choir school and you're thinking, we go and we sing, yes, that's true, but we do so much more than that. It is a theory-based program, as you've said. I've been watching my own children who are just moving back into rehearsals with the choir school engage over Zoom with ukuleles and music theory lessons and honestly singing. So I walked in on Monday night during their first rehearsal, and it's hard to rehearse over Zoom, of course, and no one can be unmuted really over the call because it would just glitch entirely. But when I walked into the house, they were on different parts of the house, and I was in the middle, and I could hear all the parts going at once, and it was glorious. So, rehearsal is still taking place. All of the elements are still there. It's just wonderful to see it coming together in a new way, in the only way we can do it right now. We're working so hard to keep everyone safe and to make this a new era for the choir school. And Davis, you're leading us in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I would just add, I've had I had not met Davis in person. I had seen him serving at St. Peter's, but I'd never met him in person until last Wednesday. I stopped by the church to drop a book off for him. And then we've had lots of phone conversations. We were able to meet in person on Monday for about an hour and a half for the first time. And as we start to sort of wind down our time together, I want to encourage all of you, if Davis doesn't reach out to you, for you to reach out to Davis. You will be entertained and enlightened and have a great time Davis needs us and we need Davis.
And Davis, how would you define that? What do you need from us as supporters of the choir school?
Well, one thing you can do is go out and tell people in the community about us. I think that's to help us spread that message that we're talking about the high quality music education we're giving to our young people. But as with every nonprofit, the best thing that you can do for us right now to help support us is to go to thechoirschool.org and make a donation today and help us get through this time. We're on solid financial footing, but every little bit helps. We want to make sure that we're delivering the best possible program and have all the resources that we could possibly need at our disposal so Elizabeth and her staff can make decisions with confidence. And I'll tell you, to Abigail talking about her daughters in the program, you know, in the past, we've really sort of outwardly just been a choir, but we've never just been a choir. We've always been a choir school. And now more than ever, the school part of this is important for our choristers. And so if you can make a small contribution that helps us to continue to deliver that high quality education, I would say that is the best way to help me right now. And also, if I give you a call or shoot you an email, I'd love to meet with you. I'd love to talk with you over Zoom and tell you a little bit more about what I'm working on and what we're trying to accomplish this year, which we're going to talk about here in just a couple minutes. But I'm really excited to get to work here and work with you all as the choir school community. I think we're going to have an amazing future together. And I just look forward to meeting every single one of you and serving as best I can.